Hello, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today, I'm here to talk about my goals. Every month, I sit down and share with you how all of my action steps on my goals from the last month went and all of the action steps I've chosen for the next month. I have to warn you, this is probably gonna be the least exciting one of these videos that we have done all year because first off, I really simplified things. If you watched my Q4 goals video that went up last month and then my October goals actions video, I simplify things. I cut a lot of things out. I got really focused on my personal goals. That way I can really spend more time focusing on my work goals and my energy levels and really soaking up the last couple of months that we have here in New York. So my goal list is very trimmed down, which means my action steps are very trimmed down. Also, I'm carrying a lot of the same things over. So spoiling it a little bit, the November action items are gonna be very similar to October's, but let's still talk about them and I will give you some of the mindset things I was thinking when I kept things and didn't keep things, etc. So starting with the October action items, the first two on here are related to my birthday goal, and that was to mail October and prep November. I actually could have colored in. I didn't have any October birthdays. I don't have any October birthdays. Isn't that bizarre? I had a ton in September, but I have no October birthday. So could have shaded that in because I didn't actually have to mail anything. And then in terms of prepping November, I have not done that yet because I only have one November birthday and I haven't done it yet, and I will get to it this weekend. I'm filming this video on October 25th. So as always, there are usually a couple straggler goals that are going to get done before the month actually ends. The last monthly action item I had for October was to plan out my yearly prep list. Again, I talked in that quarterly goals video about an overarching quarterly goal to prepare for the new year, and I made a list of all the things that I would like to hopefully get to over the course of Q4 to help really prepare me for the new year, and then also a list that I can refer back to in future years. And in October, the only action step I had was to just actually make that list, and I did that with the help of my Patreon community. I worked on an initial draft of my list and shared it with them and asked for their feedback if they had anything that they would add, and I feel really good about it. I have it split between personal and business. You're only gonna see the personal steps within these videos going forward, but there is also an entire list of business related prep things that I want to do that will be in my HB90 planner, which is what I use for business goals. Moving on to weekly action items. So the first weekly action item was to work on my honeymoon scrapbook, and I wanted to make this a weekly action item to work on the habit and the rhythm and to remind myself that I don't need to spend hours and hours to make progress. Well, first off, I didn't even get the stuff out. I didn't even pull, it's literally sitting right there in a box, I can see it. So one of my goals this weekend, and I will give myself the check for this week if I can get to it, is just pulling the stuff out, getting it out so it's available on my desk for me to use. And then you'll see in November how I've changed this because I don't think that weekly was the best option for me. The next weekly action item was steps, and this has been there for a few months now. It's just been fluctuating in terms of what my goal was. In August, I had it set at a certain level and I crushed that and it was great. So then I increased it in September and basically fell apart and didn't hit it any weeks in September. So in October, I dropped it back down to that lower level and have hit it every week since. So what I'm thinking for November, well, we're not in November yet, but for October, I hit it every week. And then the last goal here was to work out, and I hope I'm doing a good job of explaining why I have it written 4 times instead of writing on one line, work out 4 times, because that's the ultimate goal, right? The ultimate goal is for me to work out 4 times. But if I just write that on one line, then I, as you can see, would have gotten 0 check marks because there was not one week that I did it all 4 times. But because I have it written on separate lines, I can see that in week 1, I did it 3 times. In week 2, I did it 2. Week 3, I only did it 1 time, but that was also the week of the show and I was my dance show, I was really nervous about being sore. So I kind of I was still working out by going to dance and it was getting much more intense over there, but my actual at-home workouts, I kind of took off that week. But ultimately, I'm really glad of how I've set it up, and then also, given everything else I had going on this month, how I followed through on it. I am carrying it over to November and we'll talk a little bit more about what's not changing and why when we get there. Moving on to my daily action items. So the first one was to track my Apple Watch stats, and I popped up a picture in last month's goals video of what that looks like, and ultimately realized when I was talking about it in that video that it was kind of pointless, because when I have a tracker like that that's got space for every day of the month, I'm gonna track it. Even if the numbers were 0, which they were one of the days, I did not, there's one day, the day after the show, I did not put my Apple Watch on the whole day. So at the end of the day, I didn't really need to make this a goal because I did it every day because the tracker encouraged me to do it every day. I'm still glad that I'm tracking it. I am gonna continue to track through the end of the, well, I'm gonna track in November. I don't think I'm going to continue through next year. We'll see what I decide for December. I talked about this a little bit with my Patreon community, but tracking, the purpose of tracking is to get the data and do something with it. I don't think tracking forever is helpful, but for now, I feel like tracking is helping me stay motivated to some extent. So I'm gonna keep doing it for now, but I'm not going to carry over that habit because I didn't need to have it there in order to do it. All right, the next daily action item was to read before bed, and I did a decent job of this. It wasn't every day, but it was more than half. This is also my 100-day challenge focus, so this one definitely is going to be carried over every month for the rest of the year. I also think that I need it in November because I don't have dance anymore. My weeknights are changing a lot, so I do really feel like I need to carry it over in November anyways, even if it wasn't a 100-day challenge focus, in order to keep me motivated to keep checking it off in November. The next one was no snooze, and this looks way better on paper than it actually felt, because I felt that right there is the benefit of tracking, because I actually felt like this was bad. Like, I felt like there were a lot of days that I just like snoozed. Now, I will say this last week before the show, I actually didn't set an alarm at all. I really prioritized sleep. I let my body take whatever it needed in terms of rest, so there was no really opportunity to snooze. So that's probably why it looks a little bit better. But this, like, it looks better on paper than it felt. That said, I'm carrying it over because it still doesn't feel great, and now that dance is over, I really do feel like I need that accountability. And then the last one was getting 7 hours of sleep. This one was pretty good. I like sleep. I don't really feel like I probably needed to write this one down either because I'm pretty good at prioritizing sleep. All right, let's turn the page and talk about November. So starting with the encouraging words, like I do every month, I think of a concept or a topic that I want to remind myself of throughout the month, and then I go searching for a quote that kind of represents that. And the topic, which I feel like has been the one I've been using for the last couple of months, but I mean, it makes sense given everything that is happening in our lives, and that is to live in the moment. Like, if you have not heard me say, we are leaving New York City in February, and sometimes I can't believe how close it actually is. And I just want to make sure that I'm cherishing every last moment that I have while I live here in New York. And so the quote that I pulled for this month is, living in the moment means letting go of the past and not waiting for the future. I really love that. And then the priority for the month of November I put is just gratitude. I just want to be thankful for everything that I've got and everything that is going on in the month. And it's just also helpful that it's also Thanksgiving. So let's start with the monthly action items. The first two are the birthday goals, mailing November, prepping December. At this point, do I need to have it on here? Probably not, but I do know that by putting it in my goal planner, it really does make a difference in reminding me to do it. I just feel like that is something I need to figure out for next year, because this year the goal was really figuring out a system, which I did. I've got my spreadsheet and I've got the routine of like prepping the next month and mailing the current month and doing that every single month. But what I don't feel like I have a rhythm of is like reminding me to do that, besides just like in my brain. So I really do feel like I'm gonna have to figure that out going into the new year. But I do feel like I feel like I'm jumping the gun to like the summary of my 2022 goals, but I feel good about this one, even though you've been seeing the exact same action steps every single month. The next monthly action item is just to make progress on the scrapbook. So instead of making it a weekly goal and trying to force it into every single week, I'm just gonna hopefully make some progress. I've got some time, like with the holiday coming up, my family is in town for part of it, but not all of it, and I definitely have some free time. My goal is just to make some progress and shade in at least some of that bar. I'm not trying to finish it in November, let's put it that way, but I'm trying to at least kickstart that momentum, and then thinking about how I'm gonna continue that momentum through December, because ultimately my goal is to finish it by the end of the year. But I know that in December comes December daily, which I'm gonna be scrapbooking every day in December anyways, so I might be able to kind of link those two things together. And if I can make some progress in November and then maybe try a daily option in December, we'll see. I'm not committing to that right this second, but that's kind of what I'm thinking. But I don't want to just wait until December to start that. All right, the next monthly action item is starting to make progress on that yearly prep list, and that is to work on my personal goal prep. Now, before you freak out and are like, oh my gosh, I should be starting my personal goals in November, you do not need to do that. I like to start my personal goal prep. I like to have whatever I am going to be sharing with the Patreon community done before, like for my personal self, before I share it with them. It works better in my brain. I like doing it that way. And since we're doing prep differently in December, which if you haven't heard me talk about it in a video on social media, I'm hosting 5 goal prep sessions for the Patreon community in December to help you get set up for the new year. And I'm incredibly excited about it, but they kick off that first Saturday in December. And so I want to at least get started on my own personal goal prep, likely just the weekend before, which is still November. So that's why it's a November goal, because I want to get started with it. I'm not going to finish it at all, but my plan is to do what I'm going to be working with the Patreon community with like a week in advance, give or take. So that is why I'm starting in November. But do not feel pressured that you have to start in November. And if you feel like you need that extra support of getting yourself prepared for the new year, come join us in Patreon. They fixed the charging schedule. You do not have to wait for the first of the month to get the best bang for your buck. I'm so thankful for that. So come sign up and we will kick off that first session, that first Saturday in December, starting with reflections. And then the other monthly action item related to the yearly prep is to start deep cleaning the apartment. I didn't write finish because I don't think I will finish in November, and that's okay. The goal would ultimately just to finish before we leave for the holidays in December. So I have a good bit of time there too. But really the goal, I actually could have made this 2 things. The goal is twofold in November. Step 1 is to make the list. What is the list of all the areas? And then step 2 is to start executing. I also know that this really, when I say deep clean, it's not really about the cleanliness. I mean, the cleanliness is great and all, but we are moving in 4 months. Like I'm not concerned about the cleanliness of our apartment. It's more about actually decluttering and starting to think about packing. And in fact, like I might actually start packing some stuff, which, oh my gosh. Okay, stop. All right, the weekly action items are ones you've seen before. We're sticking with steps. I'm gonna wait until I finish out the month and see what my total average was for each of the weeks and then figure out what I'm gonna pick for November. But it is gonna be harder in November because I'm not going to dance 3 times a week. So I might just keep it the same, to be totally honest with you. Then we have our workouts. Same thing, I am keeping it at 4. If you remember back, I think it was August, I originally said that my ultimate goal was 5. And in my head, it was. I wanted to just do it Monday through Friday, like on the weekdays. But now that I have really started to get a good rhythm, and gosh, I cannot believe it's taken me this long to really get a rhythm with working for myself and what my schedule looks like. But because of the live on Wednesdays, I'm usually relatively burnt out after the lives. I can do some work, but not a ton of deep thinking work. So my new ultimate goal is just to work out 4 days a week. And I say just, that is still awesome. Like movement 4 days a week is awesome. And not work out Wednesday mornings so that I can get more work done before the YouTube live. And then when the YouTube live is done, I can be done with work. And my goal, this is not anywhere in like, it's like not written down anywhere except like in my Google Cal, but just to share it with you, is to let Wednesday afternoons, like after the live, I'm gonna do a couple things, but then I'm gonna do home stuff. Like that's when I'm gonna deep clean. That's when I'm gonna potentially start packing. That's when I'm going to turn my brain off from work essentially. So it's still gonna be 4. I'm not planning to change that. The goal is Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 4 times a week, and we'll see how it goes. And then the daily items are ones that you have seen before. I am just carrying them over. PM read, same thing, and no snoozing. I talked about it a little bit in the October section, why I'm carrying both of those over and why I feel the need to continue to hold myself accountable, partially because it wasn't perfect. Now, it's never gonna be perfect. I've said this a number of times. There is really no daily goal that you are ever gonna do every single day all the time, but I didn't feel great about them, and knowing how much of my schedule and routine is changing in November, I really felt the need to carry these over. That is it. Those are my goals for November. Again, keeping it very simple still, and a lot of similarities from what you saw in October, but I really feel good about that. I feel like I'm prioritizing what's important and making time for the things that are important to me. And I feel like that comes through in my goals. So we have changed up what we do at the end. If you haven't watched one of these in a while, instead of celebrating October, you're like, October's over, Laken, let's talk about November. So I want you to share in the comments what is one goal that you are excited about, one action step, one thing that you are prioritizing in November that you are really excited about. I want you to let us know down in the comments. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, please click that subscribe button. I upload new videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday focused on helping you achieve your goals. Thank you so much for watching. But in August, let me try that again. It is loud and the lighting is weird. And then the daily item,